Hi folks, with Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. Please listen to this presentation as you would a radio broadcast. In this essay, I'd like to talk about the voluminous amount of supposed academic and expert studies that over the last 20 years or so, I guess, or longer, that have purported to prove how evil white people are, especially white men. And these studies they're claimed to be impartial. Now that they fall into sort of a few areas. Firstly, the first sort of cab off the rank, if you will, firstly was the misogynist, oppressor, wife basher, evil husband. So the family unit was under attack, and in order to sort of separate husband and wife and to break up the solidarity, if you like, of the family, there was a huge campaign kicking off in probably it started off in the late 80s. It was tame, but was really to the sort of the periphery of the editorial type pages. But it increasingly came into them, and by the mid 1990s, it was full-throated. It was absolutely full bore, screaming from the rooftops type propaganda from supposed university academics. Professor Billie Jean said that women are being murdered at the rate of 10 million a second, every second, and statistics that could not have been accurate. And if you look at it and go, wow, you could see that these were just pure inventions, of pure fiction, but they're being put out now. One thing that surprised me, and I did a little bit of follow up on it on back in the day, because just looking at it so crazy, was just how much money some of these people were being paid to do this. So I say back in the day, I'll just use round numbers. Back in the day, the professor of sociology who did the study is on a salary of $100,000 a year. It's not that much at the time. Again, I'm using round numbers here. It was not that much above the average wage. It was above, but not hugely so. But they receive, if you sort of started to burrow into it, you'd realize they received $1 million grant from some government department to do this research. And the same day the research was announced, politicians are jumping in front of the camera and the microphone to say, we're going to protect women from those evil men, those evil husbands. Don't you worry, girls. We'll grab that motherfucker and throw him straight in prison. And he's not going to hurt you anymore. Big, tough, hairy-chested politician is going. And this was something that when I first came across it surprised me, because I thought, that's not true. I don't know anyone that falls into I don't know anyone that behaves like that. And the first time I was able to nail it down and really prove that it was a coordinated international propaganda campaign, and I've mentioned this aspect before, was at the very early stages when I was doing international travel, business travel. They used to work me very hard back in the day. You had to cross multiple time zones, and you're traveling sort of sub-cattle class and so on. But I would often be in an airplane, say, that had come in from New York, and I still had the New York newspaper in it. Some of them even still had the London England newspaper. And so I'd have the local, say, San Francisco or Los Angeles West Coast newspaper. So I'd have 3 newspapers across three time zones, or multiple time zones. And I would note that the editorial saying that all men are wife-bashing, Nazi, fascists, and so on, misogynists, exactly the same article was appearing in the London newspaper that appeared, this is pre-internet, and would be in the New York newspaper and in the Los Angeles the same editorial. They just changed the name and say it was Professor this and Professor that, and it was from a Los Angeles university if the editorial is in Los Angeles, and so on. So they'd only go to that extent to localize it. But there was no, and things that I noticed was obvious to me, say in a very cold climate where people would be in the house for most of the time, the supposed statistics for a murder and oppression and whatnot of women. The supposed statistics were exactly the same in environments where people were that was in Arctic conditions for 6 months of the year, as opposed to somewhere like southern California, where the weather was quite mild. You don't get the huge snows for 6 months or anything like that. But the numbers were the same. Now, if indeed the men are so prone to brutality and violence as is claimed, you mean to say the numbers would be exactly the same, even though they're in completely different climatic conditions and so on and so forth. So I noticed this going on. I also noticed that NGOs were being paid to produce this propaganda as well. And this was into the 90s. This was the beginning of really the NGOs being infiltrated and then co-opted or created specifically for the purpose of propaganda spreading and spreading moral panic about, in this instance, evil men bashing their wives. And so the invention of rape was also, so they also then went on to the rape on college campus thing, that all young women were being raped 50 million times a day and so on. Now, these things are quite easily to poke holes if you stop and think about it, and bear in mind that a discerning dude like me will be looking at it and go, hold on a minute, these facts don't stack up. And that was part of my job at the time, to marry up statistics and facts with this and that and A and B and C. So that gave me, or helped with a certain logic. I was also an insane history buff, so had been taught at college and school to back in the day. I don't think you'd get that to now, but to say, well, if historian A says such and such, but historian B says something completely different about the exact same event, where does the accurate truth lie? Where is it? In the middle? Is it this way or that way? Or is one of the historians mistaken and the other not? And so on. So to actually analyze information to, well, on balance of probability, it stacks up like this, and to look at. So I was able to look at these editorials and go, what a load of fucking rubbish. Maybe not everyone could do that, probably not, given how successful the propaganda appeared to be. But then governments began to make policy about these things. We have to put strict laws to prevent these evil men from, and so on. So they separated the genders. White men and white women were now at conflict with each other. It was even worse in black communities. And so they were able to destroy, tens of millions of families were destroyed because, especially if the woman wasn't that bright. So, gee, I didn't know I was that oppressed. Oh, wow, he's oppressing me. If he drives the car, he's oppressing me. If he, says this and does that, then he's oppressing me. I'm oppressed. I'm a victim. Oh, wow. And if I divorce him, I get the house and the kids and the car and money and so on. Whoa, sounds like a good deal to me. So this was very much part of the times, and then they moved on from gender to race hustling, and then of course more recently the LGBTQ trans and so on. But all of these are just hustles to divide and to bring about social decay and social decline, and to break down social trust and so on, which the globalists have done quite successfully, by the way. You got to hand it to them. But what they've done is they've paid, whether it's NGOs, whether they've paid academics or supposed experts, some of these people have paid a lot of money to produce virulent, vicious, anti-white hatred of white people. And well, they're prepared to tell any lie to do it. Now, one of the recent ones that I saw, which came out a few years ago, and I think it went for like 2 years before anyone challenged it, even though it was obviously and manifestly untrue. Nobody challenged it. It was used widely in all sorts of citations and so on. Now, there's a black activist or group of black activist women who've got they've got medical PhDs, but in the area of what's known as racial and social justice medicine. Now, what the fuck that is, I don't know, but it's not, as you can imagine, a rigorous course. It's a sociology course, gender studies type course, lesbian dance theory and all that sort of stuff. So these people, you'd hardly call them qualified. They're rabid activists, low IQ rabid activists, no less. and they've been paid and paid handsomely to produce a report that says that black babies that just born or recently born, black babies die at double the rate if they have a white doctor, or half the rate if they have a black doctor. Now, this was an outrageous, a grotesque untruth. But somebody in government, the Biden administration, they paid for the globalist cabal. They paid for this and paid handsomely. So here's a bunch of black women who the best job they could ever get would be in the takeout chicken shop around the corner. And now they've got prestigious jobs of professor and PhD and this sort of stuff. And they get to travel internationally on the international, victim gin-up circuit, and they're paid, $200,000 a year salaries, and they live lives that they couldn't dream of if it was based on any sort of merit. But their job is, we want you to hate on whitey. You must produce something that we can use that hates whitey, and accuses them of some outrageous wrongdoing. Now, these sort of things aren't rare. They're not like this, there's one here and a couple of years later there's another one over there. These things are coming out all the time. And again, whether they're coming from activists, woke colleges or whatever, but people are being paid large sums of money to do this, say that climate justice and so on. They're being paid large sums of money to do it. Lots of travel, well-paid prestigious jobs, nice air-conditioned offices, and all they have to do is produce lies and more lies. And as long as it hates on whitey, because as you know, white supremacy is our biggest threat. As long as they hate on whitey, then that's it. They're richly rewarded, I believe. And this has been taxpayer money that's being used, looted from the white taxpayer. The white taxpayer is paying handsomely for the privilege of being hated. So money is looted from the white taxpayers and given to these people to, again, produce these hate on whitey reports and supposed or alleged studies and so on. So I think all that should be chased down. And whoever's approved this, because they've gone and said, you will get this money, but only if you tell lies, invent the most outrageous claims, and hate on whitey. I mean, who is doing that? Who is putting in the order for this? Who's the procurement officer, and who's approving the money? And they need to be chased down. And I believe charges should be brought and prison time should be considered. You've been with Tastis today at your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.